Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of my conversation with Bree from Luna Soul Events, where we are talking all about wedding and event industry topics and how an evolving industry can become better. In part 2 of my conversation with Bree of Luna Soul Events, we continue the discussion by diving into some of the industry's biggest challenges and opportunities, from artificial intelligence and shifting to client expectations, changing businesses and models, and growing popularity of wedding planning as a career. We explore what these changes mean for both seasoned professionals and those just entering into the industry. These aren't always easy conversations. In fact, they're often conversations people avoid because they're uncomfortable. But if we want to build an industry that is sustainable, collaborative, respected, we have to be willing to talk honestly about what's working and what isn't, and how we move forward together. Throughout this episode, Bree and I discuss topics such as how AI is changing the way wedding professionals operate and where the human element will always matter, the impact of inflation on businesses, couples, and why industry standards matter and how they help elevate the client experience, the realities of entering into today's most sought after careers, what it takes to build a business that lasts instead of simply surviving from one wedding season to the next, how collaboration, professionalism, and education strengthen our entire industry. This conversation isn't about gatekeeping or discouraging new professionals from entering the field. Quite the opposite. We believe there is room for passionate, talented, hardworking people who are committed to learning, serving their clients well, and continually growing their craft. A thriving industry needs fresh ideas and experienced mentors, healthy competition, and businesses built on integrity. Whether you're engaged, an inspiring planner, a venue owner, photographer, florist, DJ, or a veteran professional, we hope this episode encourages you to think more deeply about the future of celebration in the industry we all love. Because the strongest industries are not built by avoiding conversations, they're built by having them with honesty, respect, and a shared commitment to raising the standard for everyone. We hope you'll join us for part 2 of the Live Life Being Adored conversation that we all believe is long overdue. So let's get started. Live Life Being Adored, the art of celebrating everything there is in life, a podcast all about hosting, having, and attending amazing celebrations. Gathering matters, and you'll join me, award-winning event designer and publisher of Adore magazine, Kat Manx, as we delve into unique ways to have celebrations, why we have them, and the unique stories behind them, including places, people, themes, unique inspiration, meaningful events, and more. We touch on all kinds of celebrations and facets of them, from weddings, award shows, corporate gatherings, social events, kids' parties, birthdays, anniversaries, and the art of celebrating our gifts, purpose, and what we were created to do, which is gather. Well, and then something that I try to do too, and I know you do this too, because you mentioned this, but they have this Pinterest board, and like you said, styled shoots are one thing, and the clients need to understand that what we put in styled shoots, or if we do a photo shoot for a publication or whatever, you're usually spending, or what the value of the labor that's put into one set of what a ceremony looks like or what a table looks like. That's one set, but you have to monetarily times that by X dollar amount. And they're like, oh, well, that costs a lot of money. And so I think I try to say, you can have elements of this. Let me show you how.
Yeah.
But often when people, wait until the last minute and they're like, I bought all this stuff, and they have like whole bedrooms full of decor and stuff that they bought, and you have to try to make sense of it all or say, you bought all this stuff off of Facebook Marketplace, but we can't use any of it because you only have five matching of this, and you only
Yeah.
have six matching of this. Like,
Yes.
and so we have to wipe the slate clean and start all over again 6 weeks
Yep.
before the wedding. Um, so yeah, I mean, that is the Pinterest boards, TikTok, social media has definitely changed the wedding industry, of course, by leaps and bounds. Um, but I think still, and what I talk about too, like when I do like women's groups and stuff with other businesses in general, I always talk about the fact that we use AI and we do all this stuff, but who's actually going to do all the stuff that AI is telling you to do?
Hmm.
Like, you can go in AI and plan your whole entire wedding, but who's going to execute it?
Hmm.
So, I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, it just very interesting, which segues into my next kind of realm of questions that I wanted to go over with you, which is the invisible labor of
Mm.
planning. So,
Hmm.
um, what what do you feel like the main thing that couples don't realize are actually handled behind the scenes?
Yeah. Um, Crisis management.
That's a great one.
That would be number one in my book. Yeah, crisis management, vendor communication, especially as it gets closer and all those fine details and just the back and the forth of, all of those details, timeline adjustments, really, um, and timeline especially. Like I've had people that have made timelines on AI and they've sent them to me, and not it's like a great template and foundation, but sometimes it gets down to specifically to the venue space itself, like knowing and like having the ceremony at a different location than the venue or the reception, and like really understanding the reality as a human who's been doing this of how much time things actually take, and the reality and the buffer time that we need to build in so that we aren't running around like we're pants on fire, and that we're not banking on this like rigid timeline so it just feels like the couple's being bounced around like a pinball on their wedding day. Like there's it's a craft to be able to put together a really fruitful, thoughtful, and like realistic timeline for couples. So I think that's one thing that is like they don't realize how much time and effort, regardless if you use a robot or you don't, there's still so much thought about, and it's not a one size fits all. Some DJs like to arrive earlier because they have a bigger setup. Some caterers have more elements that they need. Those are all the behind the scenes things that we're having conversations. What time, are we going to pause the bar at this time and what makes sense? When are we going to pause clearing for, the tables so then during speeches it's not clinking around. So timeline adjustments, I felt just more elaborate on that because I think that's one thing where people are like, I was just going to take, I was just going to use AI, or I'm going to take the one for my cousin's wedding. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but let's really think about that. And then family dynamics, really knowing, and this is where having a planner that is so involved, I tell people it's an emotional investment. Like when you're investing in me, you're investing in so much more than the bigger picture of you walking through that door and being in awe. Like there are so many behind the scenes things that I'm doing along the way, that I'm building my own, my own book for this specific wedding. And so there's the family dynamics, there's the emotions, the backup plans, like what happens, when, um, I don't know, the transportation gets stuck in the mud, right? Like, and it's full of passengers and guests. and the ceremony starts in 20 minutes and they're stuck there, like all the behind the scenes of the different elements that and challenges that arise. Um, we're a meteorologist, right? We're weather monitoring. We are watching that. We are watching that and knowing and like working with the venue at what time do we have to call it? What is going to make sense? How much time do we have? All those elements. Reading contracts, making sure that all of the contracts are making sense. And sometimes people are like, yeah, we have our photographer. And then they booked him for 6 hours because they were like, oh, these are important elements. And then as we get through, or they come and hire us, they realize, oh, well, we wanted them for hair and makeup, but I also want them because we're going to do a sparkler exit. Well, the
Mhm.
math isn't mathing, right? So it's like us being able to understand and help them understand what they're getting. Because couples are just signing contracts. They don't really know what's happening. They're like, we like your work. You're in our price point. Great. We love your personality. And they sign. So just us understanding and having either those vendor relationships or being able to do that. And then just problem solving. Like there's just so much problem solving that we do as planners through the planning process on the day of, um, and just all of those elements of taking notes on things that they say, like through our planning calls and um, hearing that she wants to do said thing and then immediately reaching out to the photographer and saying like, hey, heads up, they mentioned this on the call, we might want to look at extending or what would that look like for them. And it's just all those things that we're marking and have the knack for that we're doing for our clients to make it feel easeful. And so then they get to walk in and families get to, parents, moms, like being able to just be and exist on the wedding day as if that is just what their role is for the day. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, we are doing so much behind the scenes and so many hours and time and the resources and the conversations, to write an email or a text or a voice note. Like, if you calculate all the times we do that throughout the year that we're planning one wedding, that's a lot of time.
Mhm.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours and work. And you mentioned something about vendors and about how a lot of times if a client is hiring a wedding coordinator, kind of they're either planning ahead and they're like, I foresee I'm going to need a coordinator planner 3 months before my wedding or 6 weeks before my wedding, just for the day of.
Hmm.
So they're going and they're getting all their own vendors. And something that a lot of clients don't understand is how much effort and work that we are putting in as professionals vetting all of these vendors.
Yeah.
So can you speak to a little bit about that and how you vet your vendors and um, like the work that goes into doing that?
Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's how much time, it's one of those things where people will ask family members, like, how much time do you think that you put into one wedding? And
And now let's take another break from our sponsors.
When was the last time your family unplugged and truly spent time together? Or maybe you and your partner have been saying, we need to get outside more, but life just keeps getting busier. Bikes, we believe some of life's best memories happen on two wheels. Whether it's an evening ride around the neighborhood, a weekend trail adventure, or introducing your child to the very first bike that they ever have, every ride is an opportunity to reconnect. From kids' bikes and family rides to bikes built for adventure, Johnny Rock Bikes has something for every stage of life. And if your favorite bike has been sitting in the garage, their expert service team can get you rolling again. Because the best investment isn't just in a bike, it's in the memories you'll make together. Visit Johnny Rock Bikes in Bloomington or Hopkins and start your family's next adventure today. Johnny Rock Bikes, where every ride brings people closer.
What goes into you vetting vendors that you recommend? And also, too, Well, I'll let you answer that question first because I have a part two to that question that I think is really important to add on to that. But what goes into you behind the scenes vetting the vendors that you recommend to your clients?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I actually get a lot of question of, hey, I notice you don't have a like vendors we love to work with or vendors located on your website. And which is true. And I also don't just hand out like when I'm working with clients, I do not hand out like a vendor recommendation list. And the reason I don't do that is because I believe that a couple things. If I give my couples a list of seven said photographers that I love working with, all I'm doing is linking to their website. Now, my couple will go and potentially fall in love with a photographer that is way out of their price point, but they love their work. And then they come back to me and they're like, I love said photographer. And I'm like, oh, actually, budget wise, that's out of out of your budget that we've allocated for photography. So now I've created this high, and now I'm doing exactly opposite of what I'm selling myself as the calm, as the ease, as the person, the guru. And now I've just given you false hope. And so I feel like it's very important to curate the vendor team based on knowing my couple,
Mhm.
obviously their budget, but also knowing the vendors the way that I know them, and have worked with them and people that do great in certain spaces or that, specialize in something that my client is really looking for. And so I would rather spend more time understanding their vision, what they're wanting. DJ, it's like there might be a great DJ company, but they're looking for like the hype DJ, right? And it's like, I want to send them my list of who I like to work with that are the hype DJs and that are within their budget. So then they can get excited about it. So I think that's unpopular opinion for a lot of planners out there, but it's worked really well for me. And I explain that to people up front before they even book with me or very soon, like, on our kickoff call or our, you know, deep dive call to explain to them why I don't do that. And how that is basically because I'm thinking about their experience. Um, and it creates it's so less work for me as far as contractually. Like I've worked with these people, and I know how they operate. I kind of know how their contracts work, and how it's broken down, especially like florists or designers or something to that element on how they break down their pricing and how they bundle and save or um, you know things to that element. So I think that's really important, and it's worked really well thus far.
Yeah. And then when you are vetting vendors, so you people something that I think a lot of people don't understand is as planners, we're vetting vendors even when we're not working with any
Correct.
particular client because that's our job to
Mm.
know. I mean, that should be your job. Something that I think a lot of people think our jobs are so easy is because they're like, well, because some planners do go on Facebook land and
Mhm.
they are like, I need a florist for this date in like a wedding community group. And that's
Mhm.
how they are finding their vendors. And something that a lot of couples I don't think understand is that that does not make them a professional,
Mhm.
except for a professional Facebooker.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
Correct.
clients can do that on their own. So
Absolutely.
what what planners offer is something totally different than what people are what a client can do because a client can go on Facebook and do that themselves. So I think, I mean, us educating clients on the fact that that's not what we do as professionals in the industry. We don't go on Facebook and say, we might reach out to other professionals that we know or I know and say, hey, I know that you know so and so florist, can you hook me up with them? Or, you know, who do you recommend for this particular niche thing?
Yes.
And now another break from our sponsors. Looking for inspiration, expert advice, and fresh ideas? Visit Adore Magazine and blog for planning tips, design trends, behind the scenes insight, and real event stories. It's your go to source for creativity, education, and inspiration all in one place. Head over to adore-productions.com or adoremegonline.com. But we're not, as professionals, we shouldn't be going on Facebook and going, I need a rental company for such and such a date. They should, I know I go meet with people and in between like events and clients and stuff. So how, when clients say to you, well, I tell me if you've ever had this happen. Have clients ever said to you, well, like when you've given them recommendations, have they gone and done their own little research and said, well, I found this for this amount?
Hmm.
And what do
Yeah.
you say about that kind of situation? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen where people, will do that. They're like, "Well, I did my own research," or, I went on Instagram or TikTok, or and I always just try to applaud them, like, hey, praise them, like, "That's great. I love that you're doing your own research." Uh, you know, and the reason that I suggested or recommended these individuals that do this is because I've worked with them firsthand. I've worked with them through the planning process. I know how they show up in their business. I know how they operate. I know that said DJ is going to arrive 2 hours early, like he said he is. He's going to set up. He's going to look professional. The way that he talks to your guests, the way that he gets, when he tells you he's going to bring the party and that dance floor is going to be irresistible, I'm telling you, that is going to be the experience. It's like it's a real testimonial that I get to be passionate and explain to them as opposed to somebody is really good at Instagram or TikTok. And not that they're not great. I just don't feel comfortable saying, yeah, let's do it because I have no experience with this person. I have no idea, just because a book, like they say, just because it looks good on the outside doesn't mean that it's a great read. And I have no judgment of that. So it feels very, and I'm very realistic with my clients of like, absolutely, we can vet new people that maybe I haven't worked with. However, I do, as your planner, it feels like my duty or my due diligence to at least reach out to them myself and have a conversation with them of, hey, my clients found you on TikTok. We haven't worked together. They're super interested in your work. Can we hop on a Zoom call? Can we grab coffee? I would love to understand your business better, what you offer, and how just get a sense for who they are. So at least I have that as I'm going through and have confidence that I know a little bit about this person. It's not like, oh, we can't book them until I've worked a wedding with them. Absolutely not. But I do think it's part of our due diligence to have character judgment in some capacity because the lens that we're looking out of as a planner and in the industry is very different than our couples. Our couples, they have an end goal of this being like most of the time the most epic wedding people have been at. Like their lens is so different. And so we keep kind of the reality behind the scenes. Even if we're not saying that to our couple, I just think it's my duty or my due diligence to be able to feel confident on the backside of that.
Right, right. Which is a great lead into my next question. So, as a planner, what would you say that planners or you carry the most mentally and emotionally on a event day?
Yeah.
Like, what's going through your head? Like, explain to our listeners like exactly like what it's like and walk us through like what you're thinking mentally and emotionally on a day.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, if everybody closed their eyes and like imagined a human standing there with all the different arms that are going this way, right? Like it's funny because I had a client give me a thank you card and she was an artist and she drew, I say that because she drew it. I will have to find it, but and it was me. I had curly hair and it was so cute, but it was me with all these arms And she like brought that vision to reality, that the way she saw me and the way that she saw what I did for her and what I brought. So, we carry a lot. Vendor arrival. First thing, it's like, okay, get up in the morning. It's like, first of all, checking your phone because you probably have a text or two or three or five or 10 or a call from the maid of honor, the best man, realizing that they didn't have their tie or whatever it is.
Fancy
Mom's,
or
yeah, exactly. Mom is freaking
worse.
out because the specialty cupcakes or whatever the case may be. So that kind of just like sets the tone right away. But really, it's just like vendor arrival, family member management, making sure everybody's good. And like, I'm so passionate about, I say this at my rehearsals. It's pretty much the last thing I say. I say, I just want everybody to take out their phone if they have it, or get it on the, because I print out little like timelines for my bridal party. And I say, I want you to put my number, save it, Bree in all caps, Bree Planner. Please, please, please reach out to me and no one else, in the sense of the couple, the mom and dad. I don't care how emergency it is. I don't care if you woke up and you are sick all morning. Like, let me know and then we can decide what needs to happen from there. I want them to not know anything that's happening. So I'm very passionate about that as far as like family members and management of that. Um, every single detail of the timeline, making sure like, okay, did hair and makeup? Because typically hair and makeup starts anywhere from 6:30 in the morning, sometimes 5:30 to, 8, which is before I am on or, arriving at the venue. So, but I'm immediately thinking about vendors, because they making sure they get there, they get to the right hotel room, the right suite, um, the backup plan, weather, it's like, especially if it's dicey between that percentage, man, you're just like on it. The transportation details, just making sure that transportation is making its way to where they're supposed to go, that, guests are getting on time and being taken care of, the guest experience, every meal, the errands, if there's any errands that we're running or things that need to happen, then it really jump starts when we're there. It's like vendor arrival, linens, all the details of the tablescapes and the, personalization of it, as far as the card box, all the decor. And then in the background, you're already jump starting of like the guest arrival and what time they need to hide out and like the first look and like all the details that is is happening. It's like your brain's always two steps ahead. I know what needs to happen before it even happens. So it's carrying a lot, emergency contacts, making sure that we have all of the information. Um, you know, I always tell people, I'm like, I'm two steps ahead. I know that it's going to be hot. I already have 5 waters ready because I know that you're going to be thirsty. I have your straw ready because you have your lipstick on. I already have the napkins laying next to the bouquets because we want to make sure that they don't get your bridesmaids' dresses all wet. Like every single detail is mentally, and it is always on paper, but as you become a seasoned planner, you just can't help it. You speak the language of the timeline, and we're working on that timeline. So it's like a test. It's like you are studying it so much and you're in it that it's muscle memory, and so it just becomes. Um, and I think there's something to be said about that, is having that tailored experience of knowing that Aunt June is going to arrive at 2 p.m. and she needs a chair because her ankle, and remembering that and knowing it, already having the chair there. Like, Aunt June, this is where you go. And so just all those details that just like spin. But I think I take pride of my external shell in the way that I present myself. I have a very calm demeanor, even if it feels like 1,000 tabs are going on in my body and my nervous system. That's okay.
Yeah. Well, and two, I think that comes from, years in the business.
Yes.
Obviously very different than somebody who's new, not knowing exactly how to not wear your emotions on your face when you're client facing, so that they're not panicking or they're not going to break down and start crying when they see your face because you're in a sheer panic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can only come from doing it repeatedly, having all these instances happen on different types of events and occasions and dealing with different types of vendors, you can only it, learn how to manage that by actually doing.
It, absolutely. And not let's not forget what happens, what you're carrying mentally after the event concludes. It's not just you get in the car, you high five yourself and you take a sip of water and you're home. You're spending hours, at least for myself, I can speak. A lot of people have their like stop, it's like a McDonald's or they go to, they have their energy bar, whatever their after wedding snack is, to decompress. But it takes hours for me to, because then you're basically going through the wedding all over again in your head and like really making sure, it's just like marking all of those, dotting those I's and crossing those T's and just kind of like reminiscing on how the event went. And oh, and kind of, I'm always looking at myself, how can I improve of like, oh, I could have done that better. Or so it's like that mental conversation that happens to you too. So it takes hours to decompress after a wedding. So, at least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Let alone your feet are swollen usually.
Oh, yeah, they're swollen and like your ears are ringing because the music and your back is hurting because you're just lifting things and all of the things.
Yep, all the things. Uh, okay, I want to shift a little bit to pricing. And we kind of touched on this a little bit when it came to like the reality of what's reality and what's actually attainable when it comes to people's like Pinterest boards and what they see on TikTok and all that kind of stuff. But how do you think inflation has affected your business and the industry?
Yeah. I think vendor costs have risen across all categories. Um, I think some are warranted, and I think that there's a lot that aren't, which is what we talked about, previously of people are just matching each other and without any reason or understanding of why the pricing is the way that they are. Um, and so I think there's that. Um, and I think that couples feel budget pressure. I think that they feel a lot of pressure. I think the tradition or the culture that once was of traditionally one parent's family footing the bill or splitting has become less. A lot more couples are paying for weddings on their own, and so that has caused some scarcity mindset, I think. And that's where the budget conscious mindset comes from of like, where can we cut costs? Where can we do this ourselves? And I think it blurs the lines and the lens of them being able to see the benefit or the need of hiring, the professionals to do it. Because they're feeling that pressure of cutting costs and having the bigger dream, and then it's like they shoot big and then they have to like start to come back down to reality, um, to the pocketbooks and the purse strings. And I think I can say for planners specifically, I don't know necessarily for other industry folk, um, that the overhead, like the higher business expenses, for us planners to be able to not even keep up with the times, but to be able to efficiently do our job with the cost that people are willing to pay. And sometimes they don't match, so I think that is challenging and it's affected my business for sure of having the overhead. I think sometimes people think like a planner just has a notebook, it's like you have this notebook and you wear this cute dress and you like go and show up and I always joke, I'm like, you just think that I'm Jennifer Lopez, like just with my headset and magic fairy wand. And no, it's there's that trend that's going on Instagram or TikTok, it's like what people think wedding planners show up to the weddings as, and it's just very like, and then it's like the reality, and it's like our bag, and it's like our emergency kit, and our glasses are down here, and we no more walk in the door, and the venue manager's like, so glad you're here. Blah 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 blah. blah. So I think that in order to efficiently is the word that comes to mind, like do our job in a way that feels like we are being compensated has increased.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Um, to your point about, people think that we just have notebooks, that's our only business investment. And I think to a lot of newer people looking to get in the industry, and it's like, hey, I planned my friend's wedding, I want to be a wedding planner now, I want to have my own business. That might be what they start out with, but the reality is, to be a business, you have, like many venues require every vendor to have insurance now. So you have to have insurance, business
Mhm.
insurance. The cost of having a website and having somebody to keep that up. If you're not doing it yourself, either you're doing the time investment and doing it yourself, or paying somebody to upkeep your website, or, do your social media to whatever. Um, that's something where I think a lot of people, either they go all in and they like take out a loan when they want to become a wedding planner and buy all the bells and whistles stuff, and just throw money down the toilet instead of trying to do a little bit yourself and work your way to that point. Um, or they just don't have any of it and they're charging $200 for, like we said, like a day of coordination. And it's like, no, you to be a business, you have to have like these certain types of things to do this as a real job. And I think a lot of clients just are like, well, I'm going to go price the bottom of the barrel. They pit us against each other, pricing war kind of thing. And you as the professional one that they interview have to explain to them, no, like I have business expenses because I'm an actual business. And this other person that you're considering that's willing to do your wedding for almost free does not have those expenses, or they couldn't possibly, or they would be negative.
Absolutely. And I think it is one of those things of you're paying for a service in which you might look on paper similar. Like, oh, well, it looks like your bullet points offer very similar to what this other, lower cost planner is offering. And what isn't, I guess, like easy to be able to educate, or I'm really trying to educate and highlight this is like, I'm a seasoned planner. I've been doing this for a very long time. So naturally, all the tools in my toolbox have come from experience, time, effort, money. And so it's like you're paying for the seasoned part of me that is going to be able to do this very naturally and a lot more efficiently, in my opinion, because I have the experience. It's like riding a bike, it's something or driving a car rather. It's like it's something I get up and I do every day. Like this is what I've eat, breathe, and this is what I've done. This is my career. And, you know, I think that's part of it too, is educating clients, or potential clients that you are paying for a like the security of knowing my level of expertise and experience. It doesn't really matter what back end system I use or how I'm planning or what, like all that a client doesn't, that's not enough to sell somebody. Like I use this and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, yes, like we have to go with her because she's using said platform and I like heard that's amazing. Like they don't care. I am selling you security and a promise in the sense of the ease and the excitement and the I'm always two steps ahead and the telling you what's next before you even know what's next, the phasing. And I think that's priceless. Like I think that the value of that like is enough to be like, sign me up where, yeah, I will pay for ease. Uh, yeah.
Um, what would you say to newer planners looking to get into the industry or people that are, you know, easing their way into it? What
Mhm.
would you say to them um, when they feel pressure to undercharge industry standard?
hmm Um, I think there's a couple things. I think that assisting experienced planners is very, very vital and important. I know you mentioned this. I've taken countless over my career, educational planner certificates and all of the things, but there's nothing more valuable than gaining the experience from somebody who's come before you and, getting the real touch it, feel it, experience it, experience. And because it's learning before leading. Like this is a leadership role, right? Like being a planner, we are in leadership. It's not just a service-based, like come to me, I'm going to give you, 5 pens. Like it is such a leadership, and we always have to be on to know and pivot and have that leadership. So I think learning and, in my opinion, the hands-on asking questions, either interviewing, asking other, seasoned planners to have coffee and like really understand that because most of us get into it because we planned our own wedding, which I understand in that. But it is different when you are dealing with other people's emotions, money, visions, and then you pull in the elements of family dynamics and opinions and all of that. It's another ball game. So I think just staying humble and understanding that you might have this goal, right? Like we all want to be published, we want to do this, but understanding and having the kind of the respect of the lineup, if you will, right? Like understanding the growth in which to get there, right? It's just, and I think that comes with humble, like being humble. And it's the we over me. And that is where it's like, I'm me, and this is what I have to offer right now where I'm at. I have goals, I have, you know, desires, and I see larger visions for myself. But the reality is this is what I have to offer here. And I think also just never stop learning. Like, don't think that just because you know how to whatever the example would be, or, because you're a Pinterest guru, that it's like, oh, I'm a designer, or I'm really good at Canva. So it's like I can put together these design decks like nobody's business. But I think it just really comes back to the being humble, and understanding that getting the real wedding experience is the value. And until you really have that, you're novice, right? And which is okay. We all have to start somewhere. That's not a bad thing. But I think as a seasoned planner, that is very vital and imperative in the process, or the lineup, as I call it, of the growth in life, in this career path.
Yeah. I know I've had, and I don't know, you can let me know if you agree with this, but I've had people come and ask if they can assist me. And they're like, but I only want to work on the wedding day. And it's like, well, there's so much that goes into making sure that day goes the way it wants. You're actually going to learn a whole lot more, I think, working with me on, certain appointments, or if I'm walking you through how to do a timeline, or if I'm walking you through how to sell. I mean,
Mhm.
these are basic things that not a lot of people who just blindly go into the industry understand or know about. And then all of a sudden they're like, I'm opening a wedding coordination business. And it's like, well, have you ever done sales before? Or have you ever been, um, have you ever like been an admin or customer service? Any place?
Yeah.
Have you done banquet serving? That's another one. I mean, there's so many different facets to what a planner does, and you're not just gonna, like we talked about, yes, you need the real wedding day experience to handle the oh my gosh moments.
Hmm.
I feel like what a lot of the newer people don't understand is that you actually need to have day-to-day knowledge of like how to um how to work a Zoom call or how to I
Yeah.
mean, these are basics that you need to be able to run a business. And there's a lot of people coming into the industry that don't know those basic things.
Yeah. I mean, I get people at weddings, come up to me like guests and like, do you love what you do? And I'm like, yes, I feel like I could do it. And it's a compliment to me because I'm like, yeah, I made this look flawless. Like you have no clue on all of the time and experience and, you know, time that it took to make it appear that this is like, I love this. This is fun. I can like show up to a wedding and tell people what to do, you know? And so instead of taking it as like a diss, I've turned it into a positive thing of like, yeah, like I've created this to run like a well-oiled machine and present itself like everything is under control because typically it is, even if it isn't. It's like the silent things that are happening behind the scenes. But yeah, I think it's the everyday thing. There's not an off season for planners, or I don't think there should be. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that think we should be worker horses. That's not what I'm saying. But to your point before is like when we're not executing weddings, what are we doing to build our business? What are we doing to, bring in more education? I mean, when you are building a team, like that alone, like you can't do it all alone, right? Like, I mean, you could, but you can't really. So it's like being a business owner, I tell people it's not for the weak. Like it's not, and I don't mean weak, but like it's not easy. It is not an easy thing when you wake up and you're looking around and you're the CEO and you're like, what are we doing today? What are we doing to move the needle forward? What are we doing for, the growth? And yeah, it takes a strong mindset and time. It takes time. And
Right.
that is where the humbling, opportunity comes for us or for aspiring planners to really understand where you're at on the totem pole.
Right.
Even if you want to be, right, like the top and be published, that's amazing to have those goals. But the reality is you're just starting out and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, and that is okay. And
Yeah.
slow, steady, consistency, you'll see and feel the fruits of your labor.
Yeah, I think too, something because this market is so saturated.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, but when you really think about it, every major city is a saturated market when it comes to wedding and event planning. I mean,
Yep.
really, it is probably one of the top 10 jobs that women specifically seek to have in every city. I
Yep.
have, I'll have to actually look at that, but I I should put that stat in here because it's literally like um you it is one of the most sought after jobs, and so it is very competitive. And um I think when you said, knowing your spot on the totem pole is not a dig. It is
Mm-mm.
accept where you're at in your life, in your situation, um, and learning to be okay with it, I think is something that societally, um, industry for this particular industry, but even women in general, I feel like have a hard time, because of social media and of, always being in competition with other people and other, comparisonitis. learning to accept where you're at and being okay with it, but looking at it as a good thing for growth and knowing that there's so much ahead of you and so much more to learn. And that should be exciting to
Yeah.
people that are trying to get into the industry, like it was for us, like, or and is like I'm still learning about things. And but I've also put in the time and the effort. Like I worked sales at a hotel, I worked at a wedding dress shop, I um worked at banquet and catering sales. I've done these behind the scene jobs to understand what I do so well.
Yeah.
Have you done some of those other areas in the industry? Have you worked in other areas of the industry to understand?
Yeah. Yeah, like I in South Carolina, I worked for a florist. Like I'm not passionate about florals, but I like they needed help and I was like it's important I think educationally for me to understand some of the process of florals, and like specifically I was like I want to learn about like a boutonniere. What if that comes up? Like what if I have to quickly take some florals from a centerpiece and put that together? Like to have that education that was important to me. So the continuing education or how to properly cut a cake if I have to do that. Like all these things because you are multiple hats. You are a planner, but I joke, but it's so like we are multiple things. I've had to sew brides into their dress. I've had to help them out of their dress. I've had to, makeshift a bustle because, I'm not a seamstress, but I've taken the effort to learn from the professionals so I have that education in, can utilize that in real time. And so I think but I think one thing that people don't realize so much is, and you touched on this, is the administrative leadership part of it. There's so much of that that goes into our business, um, and just being a business owner in general, but specifically a wedding planner that takes skill. Like that takes skill and understanding the behind the scenes thing more than that you have a knack for, you know, planning and putting things together and making things look pretty. Very important. But all those other things, I think are just as important, if not more, in certain buckets.
Mhm. Yeah. And do you also think that surrounding yourself and putting yourself in certain rooms has also attributed to um, your, continual want to be in the industry and also your mental health too, when it comes to
Yeah.
working with so many different personalities and high pressure situations? I think a lot of people don't understand, like, we are always in a high pressure situation. We're in a pressure cooker for every event because you can only do that event one time. There's no redo. And so I think surrounding myself with, people and recognizing when I'm not supposed to be in a certain room or the values don't align with how I want to run my business and how I want to be in community. Um, so just be like, have you experienced that at all in your business life and industry?
Yeah, it's one of those terms where people are like, find your frienders, your vendor friends, and which seems like easy or like counterintuitive, like, oh yeah, like you're all in the same pool. Like, doesn't everybody just mix and like mingle, and no, that the very short answer to that is no. So yeah, I think being able to take the leap to put yourself in rooms unknowingly of the result, and then being able to recognize, to your point, of where um, you feel like your alignment is. Um, I always say this with weddings. It's like I don't want to take all the weddings because I would have no life, and but I want to vet and curate the right weddings that are right for me in alignment, because a couple deserves to be working with a planner that feels passionate and excited about their wedding. And it's the same with vendors, that having good alignment. Now we might cross paths because of mutual vendor or client books us. That's great. But when it comes to the support, when it comes to being a business owner and how you operate and how you show up and your morals, your values, I think are really, really important as well. I know for me, I don't have a lot of family that are in the industry, so they don't get it. So it's like they'll listen, but there's value to finding, even if it's just a couple people that, and it doesn't have to be planners. It could be it could be other said vendors, but it would be a bonus to have a couple planner friends to just be able to bounce things off of. Like I say this all the time. It's we over me. There are so many weddings. They might not all be the right weddings, but there are weddings. If it's in Minnesota, Wisconsin, like you can go and you can find weddings. So we're not on a shortage of that. So especially as a planner, it's I don't look at it as competition. It's like how can we help each other excel in ways because I might have a date booked or this client might not be ideal or they're looking for a very niche thing that I don't offer. How valuable is it that I'm able to look at the client or talk to the client and say, "Hey, it doesn't seem like I'm well aligned for what you're looking for, but my dear friend Kat, she offers this, and I think she'd be an amazing potential planner for you for what you're looking for." Like the value of that from a human element is high, and it can return on the investment of, because I've had that where I wasn't the right fit for somebody, but then their friends got engaged and they referred me, even though I referred them to another planner. They referred their friend that was like, Bree is the perfect personality for you. And they booked me based on, so it matters how you're showing up. It matters how you're operating and running your business behind the scenes and, client facing. I think it all is encompassing of the larger vision.
Do you love to plan events and weddings and special milestone moments in your life? Because Adore has an amazing opportunity for you. We actually have something called the Society of Celebration, and it helps people that love to be the hostess with the mostest create the most beautiful celebrations without having to have a giant storage closet for all of your decor and events. You can actually have boxes of pre-prepared design items sent to your doorstep so that you can have the most wonderful celebration, pack everything up, and ship it right back. Join the Society of Celebration today to gain tips on how to make your celebration just the most beautiful event easily and efficiently, and also have the tools to do it. So check out Adore's Society of Celebration today. When you are thinking about newer planners coming into the industry, how do you think that we as experienced planners can support them while still protecting industry standards without coming off as like know-it-alls, I guess?
Yeah.
Or what do you think would be the best way for us to support people coming into the industry?
Yeah, so I can actually speak to this in a way that was real life. A couple months ago, a woman reached out to me and she's wants to start a wedding planning business and she's been doing a little bit of coordination on the side. And somehow she got my contact information from a hair and makeup person. And so she reached out and she said, "Hey, could we hop on a Zoom call or grab coffee? I would love to understand how you hear how you got into it. What do you love? I feel like I would love this, but I feel like I am so naive to what actually goes into what you do. I would love to pick your brain if you'd be okay with that." And I just was like, yeah, like let's do it. So we did. We hopped on Zoom and I would say some of the key elements that I shared with her being hadn't even come up with a business name. She just like came up with the concept that she thinks she wants to be a wedding planner. I just shared the knowledge, not about weddings at all. Like nothing about weddings. Like, oh, I think you should use this platform for timelines, like nothing to do with that, but truly the industry itself and understanding and educating her on that, and specifically being in the Midwest. So then she can make a discerned decision if that really feels aligned for her and her larger vision of the types of weddings that she wants to plan. We're not a luxury market. So
Right.
if you are wanting that, that look, she was from New Jersey. So I was like, uh, you plan, you helped friends plan weddings in New York. So that is not what this is not what you're going to get here. So just really protecting the industry standards. Exactly what we've been talking about a lot today is um, just educating her on what it all takes, the reality, the not as I say, it's not the sexy stuff, it's the what's the reality for Bree as a wedding planner on a day to day. What does that look like on a weekly, a monthly basis, a yearly? And because the industry and changes, how, being able to ebb and flow and also understand, is this something that you're doing for because you need money? Is this something you're doing out of passion? Is it, do you want a team someday? Like, do you want this to explode and, like be this open up in different branches? Or are you just kind of like, I think I want to do this and keep it small? I think that's important to understand what your why is beyond that. I love weddings and I love love. Like you read that a lot in what, wedding planners bios, like, I love love. Okay, great. Like, I love that. And there's more to it. So understanding your why, because it's not easy. It is challenging. And so I think a lot of it comes from passion. I know for me, I'm like passionate about the people, the relationships, I touch on this a lot and I will continue, is like the emotional side. I am an emotional being. I am a mom myself. I was a bride at one point. And I think there's something special and gifted for myself that I offer, is because I see people in ways that they might not see themselves, or the need very quickly. Like if I'm on a client call, I can see like, hey, they look overwhelmed. Their shoulders are shrugged. They just told me that they were in traffic and they came from work. I don't think this is a good time to have this conversation. We shouldn't be talking about the budget of the photographer. So being able to understand that and not pushing and like bring them back to a, hey, let's take a deep breath here. So, yeah, just understanding. I think I just keep saying it, is like understanding this is not butterflies and unicorns and fireworks all of the time, because
Right.
it takes work behind the scenes. It takes money, it takes time, it takes effort, education, and you kind of just always feel on. So knowing that too, especially during wedding season. But again, to my point, we're not really ever off season. When people say, oh, is it like, oh, is it your off season? It's like, yeah, for execution it is. But now is the time where I'm pouring into the business and, writing that blog that I've been meaning to write, and like doing, let's talk about taxes, making sure all my expenses are accounted for, the amount of hours for that. So, yeah, just I think sharing the knowledge at the larger vision beyond that, we just make people happy and have them show
Right.
up to a pretty space.
Helping them understand that it's different when you're a hobbyist
Hmm.
and versus being a professional. You know,
Correct.
if you're in it if you're entering into the industry and putting the time forward to make it what you're going to be doing as a professional, you have to step out of that hobbyist zone and
Yeah.
take those responsibilities like taxes, insurance, all the admin stuff, all that stuff. Helping, I think, yes, to your point, like helping newer people in the industry understand, and also clients, because I have seen clients go on social media and say, I just want to hire a hobbyist. And it's like, okay, uh, what's your expectation for that to happen? Like I actually did like a video recently that talked about how like there's professionals in every industry. And when I got a phone call from a bride who was like emergency 911 mode because the planner that she hired, full service coordination, was not doing like anything. And she was getting vendor calls 10, 12 days out from the wedding saying, we don't know what's going on here. And I said, her driveway is about to crumble, like just like any industry. Like if you think about somebody that does a driveway and somebody that does this, and I'm like, her driveway is about to crumble
Uh-huh.
because she is because of the level of experience that was hired is equal to the amount that she paid.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah,
absolutely.
all very good things. Okay, so let's do a few closing questions.
Yeah.
What keeps you passionate about weddings? Because we know that being in the industry is not easy. So what keeps you passionate about doing what you do?
Um, I think first and foremost, it's the clients themselves. The me feeling so confident in what I offer, and I know when I can get the right clients in my seat that I am going to guide them and bring it always back to the you're a fiance for only so long. Like, let's live in that fiance world and that land and like have fun with it. And yes, are there going to be fierce conversations? Yes. Are there going to be hard conversations? Yes. There's going to be some decision fatigue? Because again, you're not just handing me over your money and you're going to show up on your wedding day. That's not the experience I offer. But I really feel passionate about working with the clients. I love my clients. I love working with them. I love hearing their stories. I love watching their excitement evolve over the course of the planning. Um, and so, it's building relationships. I mean, some of my wedding couples are some of my dear friends. Like, some of them live out of state and they're like, come and visit, bring your family. Like, so building those relationships because at the end of the day, their wedding is done and then they just become another human that you knew, right? Or know, or that follows you on Instagram. And so I think that is just super cool is building those relationships. And just building the relationships with vendors, and kind of building that community, if you will, and beyond weddings, but just as business professionals that are out here taking the risk, right? It's a risk. It is a risk for us. And so having that energy around you and seeing the dedication and the passion that other people have, it's electric and sometimes can give you the fuel you didn't even need, that coffee date that you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to it. And then it just like ends up being this amazing photographer who you click with and is like, oh my gosh, I love the Spice Girls too. And like we just like reminisce and we're having so much fun. And before we know it, it just like we're not looking at questions anymore to ask each other. We're just having a authentic conversation. And so I feel really passionate about that. And I think at the end of the day, watching my couples actually enjoy their wedding because they trusted me. They trusted my word. They trusted my hard work. And so I always, sometimes I will go back and I will read testimonials just to remind myself of like what I'm doing out in the world of obviously weddings, but I'm bringing together a large amount of people. Now, granted, I understand they're not my friends and guest list, but at the end of the day, the reality is that at a wedding, if anything goes wrong, it's the planner's fault. If everything goes right, it's the planner. Like everything typically ties back to the umbrella of the hub person and the person in charge. And so I love that I get to do that. I get to bring hundreds of people together every summer or every season and just watch the pure joy at parents that left the kids at home and like are on the dance floor and the married couple that have are doing the anniversary dance and just staring at each other's eyes and just like, wow, we made it 50 years. Like those little moments I wouldn't get if I wasn't a wedding planner. Like being around the energy of other humans, um, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. It fuels me. I often take a lot of reflection time. I'm a very reflective person, and um, standing out there on that wedding day, like I feel just as proud as I'm sure, not just as, but in a different lens, but like I feel just as proud as the couple of like, we did this. Like we did this and here's the fruits of our labor and it's just fun. It's fun and it's electric is the word I come up with. It just feels like, you just kind of get the wedding day high, where you're just like, "Ooh," and then you get
It's
to,
definitely a rush. Like it,
it's a
even
rush
this day when you are standing, when the bride is walking down the aisle, I still cry
every
every
time.
single time because you feel so lucky that you get to be in that room. So I think
Yeah.
if you don't feel lucky, then you're in the wrong industry. If
Yeah. It's
you don't feel lucky when you see that and you get to witness that and you get to be a part of that extremely special moment, then
yeah. It's it is that when dad comes up and hugs you and says, "Thanks for taking care of my baby girl." Like
Mhm.
that. I mean, I get choked up thinking about
I
it. It's
know,
just
right?
like it's it's those moments where it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, I might be really good at what I do and behind the scenes, but like it's this. Like this is the magic. This is the passion. And people feel that. I've been to weddings where I wasn't the planner and there was a planner, and you can see a difference of a passionate, all in, loving, dedicated planner versus somebody who is a hobbyist.
Mhm.
And I think there's a time and a place for those individuals. And I think that if you truly are going to title yourself as a wedding planning business and the way that you show up is very, very important.
Mhm. Ah, excellent. Great job. I love what you just said. So that's great. Um, what do you want? Oh, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, sorry, it looked like you froze for a minute.
No.
What do you want couples to understand the most about listening to this episode? Oh, hold on 1 second. I got it.
Yep.
All right. Let me ask you that question again one more time, just because
Mhm.
I didn't want my computer to die.
Yep.
Um, so in listening to this episode, what do you want couples to understand the most?
Yeah. I think first and foremost is your wedding isn't about making the perfect Pinterest board, first and foremost. So understanding and having conversations together. I call it tent time. That's what I call it with my couples. I'm like, you're going to have tent time and I'm going to assign you to that. And that's like, that's homework. And that's opportunity because there's a wedding and there's marriage. Now, I'm not a marriage therapist or a counselor by any means. However, I think there's an element that is very important because you're getting ready to step into those new shoes. And so when the wedding and the pretty stuff goes away, there's, the connective energy and you being with your person. So I think understanding that it gets to be fun. It gets to. It's like a get to versus have to. It gets to be fun. It gets to be you. And always tying it back to that. And like I tell couples, when I work with my couples, I always look at both of them and I'm like, tell me two things that you're passionate or excited about for the wedding. Just two. And you might have 10. Typically, the female has all of the things. But, I think that's important of understanding the larger vision. Um, and it's really just about a day where you get to be fully present with the people you love. Like, just let that sink in for a minute. Like, when will you be alive on Earth where you bring 25 to 500 people, depending on your guest count, in the same room to celebrate you and your love? When? Like, that's a big deal. There's birthday parties, but this event is monumental. Like, and so it's like being fully present in that and understanding, yes, we get to make choices of linen colors and all of that. And that is very important. And those are all elements, but understanding that the connection is just as important, or those different elements, or, you know, how people are going to be involved and have influence on your decisions, I think is another thing. And, you know, what are you going to remember 20 years from now? What are people going to remember 20 years from now? Like, what is the end goal here, and what is the passion or the larger vision? And I always tie it back to of, you know, you you only are going to do this with this person. Now, there's circumstances that it happens, and there's sometimes second marriages, third marriages, and weddings and all of that. But in this sense, as I'm speaking in the context of this specific wedding, you're only doing this once. So let's have fun with it. Let's sit back, phase it out. I always say ride the boat, right? Like we're going to the islands. We're gonna hop on a boat together, and I'm gonna be your co-pilot. And we're gonna ride down the river, and we're gonna stop at DJ Island, and we're gonna stop at, and like let's make an experience. Let's grab a pina colada, like let's take a look, let's, slow down. I think so much of human nature is fast, 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 fast. And it's like a flex. It's a flex to like say that you did something so fast, or that you burnt yourself out is like a flex nowadays. And it's like, why? Why can't we slow down, have more mindfulness, be more present, and enjoy the experiences that are happening in front of us? Presence over perfection. There's a book, Presence Over Perfect. And I think that is the larger vision in wedding planning, of just event planning, and the guest experience. I think that's what if I was speaking not on emotion and logistics, is like, I think guest experience is very, very important. And I feel passionate about bringing that back, or bringing that to the Midwest, because I think it matters.
It totally does. And it gets lost. I think a lot of people are, so focused on this day is about me and I've waited for this day. But they lose sight of the fact of this is number one, like how often are all of your family and friends together in one room? How many times in your life is that going to happen? Maybe two. And it's usually a wedding and a funeral that you're not even there for.
Correct.
So, and then also, like, when you really think about the weddings that people talk about years later, they talk about how well they were taken care of and how welcome they felt. They talk about how they felt, not about how the bride felt.
Mm.
And so I love that, we are in the same wavelength about that. Like, making it like the guest experience is so important. So important.
It's like the five senses. That's what they remember. How they see it, how it smelled, how it tastes, the fun that they had. It's the welcoming. And that's what I always say. I use that in planning, like the five senses. Like, let's touch on those, because those are really important. Think about when you go to a restaurant, or you go to a play. From the time you walk in, and that person that's checking your bag can really set the tone for your experience of showing up at the Orpheum. Like that, the minute you walk in, it's like you're on for the guest experience all the way to the time you leave those doors. And that's what you remember.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
that's really, really important.
absolutely. All right. Well, I have taken up so much of your time, but I am so grateful for this conversation. And I know like so many people there's so many wonderful pieces of information that we talked about here, whether it's for industry people, for planners that are just as seasoned as us and industry professionals, vendors, and clients are going to get so much out of this that I just thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for your bravery and wanting to also like not be afraid to say like what actually is. And I love the honesty in our conversation today. So I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor to be here. And more so, it's really fun to be able to talk and hear yourself reflect on your journey. It's something that people don't do often. You just kind of go through the steps and, it kind of takes you down memory lane of like, oh, I remember that first wedding. And oh, I remember like it's starting to like build this story that's been built right in front of you, but you don't look back at the chapters very often. So it's like that has been really an amazing experience for me today doing this is just getting to reflect on those experiences that I've had, some really, really tough and some really, really great. And that's like what's built me to be who I am today, both individually as Bree and as a planner in the industry. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Let us know where can people find you and tell us, where do we find you? How do we contact Bree?
Yeah.
And anything else that you want us to know.
Yeah, so you can go on my website, www.lunasoulevents.com. Feel free to peruse around, learn more, reach out via email. My email's on there, my phone number. I'm an open book. Send me a text, shoot me a call. I love it. I love the authenticity. So reach out to me. Even if you have questions, if this is for a couple, obviously, would love to hear from you and see what would be possible. Vendors, if this spoke to you and you're like, I want to hang out with Bree and have coffee, let's do it. Or a beverage of your choice. And for everybody else, yeah, you can reach me on the website. You can follow me on Instagram at LunaSoulEventsMN. So you can go there. Otherwise, again, my number is on the website. It's on the internet. Would love to hear from you. And one thing I just want everyone to know is we're all in this together called life, right? Like, let's take the weddings out of it. It's just life. Life is lifing, and we are all trying to navigate and figure it out and have a regulated nervous system and feel calm and ease and love and passion. And the more that we have fierce, intentional, sometimes, uncomfortable conversations, it's growth. It is growth. It's not from a place of judgment. It just comes from a place of passion, and we're all in it together. We're all trying to survive. So continue to uplift one another, engaged couples, vendors, friends, humans. I'm always down for it.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Live Life Being Adored. Make sure you like and subscribe our podcast or our YouTube channel, and check out Adore Magazine at adoremegonline.com and Adore Productions, adore-productions.com. Have a great day and live life being adored until next time.